Hello and welcome back to the ministry. And today we're going to be talking about why are women held to a double standard that men are not? Why is it that as Christian women we are taught that we have to be quiet, we cannot date, we have to wait till the Lord aligns us with the man in which we are supposed to be with? But are the men being held to that same standard? Because if you really read into the Bible, a lot of the men had multiple concubines and all this kind of stuff. Now, Boaz seemed like he wasn't really looking for nobody, but he was about 80 years old. A lot of theologists have confirmed that he was about 80 years old, so he wasn't out here trying to be with anybody like that. And when it comes down to it, are men held to the same standard that women are? I remember I was listening, and I asked this to a minister, it's a young woman, Esther's Way. She did a teaching on marriage, and I asked her in the middle of it, I was like, so are men being held to the same standard we are? Because we supposed to consecrate, we supposed to fast, we supposed to do all of this, we supposed to pray for our God-ordained spouses, but what about the men? Are they doing that too? Why are they out here just doing? Out here in the world, just being out here in the world. Just having their fun, flinging around, whatever, with whoever. Because the way that the Bible was actually written, it states that when a man marries a woman, she actually cannot marry again unless her husband dies or he declares a divorce decree from her. Or else, anybody she goes to after she's been married with him, she is actually considered defiled and, what is it? That might not be the exact word, but she's like dirty and like she's having an affair. It's almost like she's having an affair if it's not the husband's decision to have divorced her. So it's like, and still then she still has a scarlet letter on her, is the way that the Bible depicts it. So but the men they can sit up there and they have all these concubines and they can have as many wives as they want and all this kind of stuff, especially in that time. Right now they can't, not legally. Not legally, they can't do that. But think about it. In today's time frame, they still are. If you look at it like this, if a man is still out here going out, getting involved in relationships, sleeping with as many women as they want to sleep with, and they just gonna wait until the Lord sends them a wife. Every person that they slept with, technically under the old covenant, they married that person. And I literally was listening to Anointed Fire do a teaching and said that a man needs to thoroughly break every soul tie he has ever had before he meets his wife, because what happens is if they have a soul tie to somebody that is not their spouse, that spirit on the person that they were attached to can delay, deter, cause issues for them to reach their spouse, and then that spiritual spouse on them could actually harm their spouse. I'm telling you a story that's 100% true because I heard it from a woman who was in a biblical teaching that my coach did. And she said that her daughter waited for this man. She was happy, she was joyful, she was blessed, the experience was amazing. Got married, went on the honeymoon, and I believe he had just come back from the honeymoon, went back to work in service somewhere, because I think he was in the military, and a truck ran him over. They ain't been married 2 weeks. He died because a spirit spouse was attached to him that did not want him married. These men got to clear all of their cages before they come marry their God-ordained spouse. Because, yes, the God-ordained spouse has the ability to pray to the Lord, and the Lord will destroy anything that's blocking that. But when the man has been in sin and was spiritually connected to somebody that was not of God, if he don't cut that connection, it could cause an attack on his spouse. As is, when the God-ordained wife begins to pray for her husband, all them spirit wives, meaning every Jezebelic person that he ever slept with, that he did not break a soul tie to, them spirits coming together in the spirit, and they whichever one feels jumpy, start performing voodoo, and all kinds of stuff. Ask the chair how she know. How she know. You be going through all kinds of warfare, wondering where it came from. If your spouse out there doing any kinds of foolishness, and depending on what his career field is, oh Jesus Christ, be offense to you and to them, because the warfare is real out here in these streets. But the question of the fact of the matter is this: men are not held to the same standard as women. Meaning we are naturally taught biblically to be sanctified before the Lord, to hold ourselves in a specific manner. You fast, you pray, you cleanse, you prepare, you do all of these things. You do not touch another man before marriage, is such and such. Men aren't taught that. Men are not taught that. Men are not. What man you ever heard their father tell their son, I need you to not touch any other woman until you find your God-ordained spouse. I need you to sanctify yourself before this Lord. Maybe a pastor would. Maybe a pastor would. You gotta be careful with them, because some of them, not every pastor is out here for God. They religious, but they ain't out here for God. Let me just tell you that. But you aren't hearing the men teach their sons that. But sometimes in a lot of situations, the men are not teaching their sons because they don't have father figures. Certain minority persuasions of skin tones don't have father figures in the household to even teach them anything, let alone be father figures to them, which creates holes that attach and affect their relationship. I was listening to a word the other day, and they were talking about that the male figure's presence and the way that he teaches his son affects the way that he's going to treat a certain relationship. The way that the mother specifically affects the son on how he treats his wife. Same thing as the way that the father relationship affects the daughter determines how she gonna treat the husband. I had to do a lot of working out with that, because me and my father have had a tumultuous relationship. Either we don't talk at all, or it's very difficult to have a conversation. We're not talkers. He does not talk. I love to talk. As you can tell, I love to talk. I'll sit here and talk with you guys for the longest. but that affects. But the men, if you don't have that right relationship, you're not going to have the right relationship with your spouse. And if the man does not have the right relationship, he's not going to have the right relationship with his spouse. And this was not the direction I was trying to go with this message, but in turn, it all evolves into that. The men are not told to consecrate. And I believe it's 1 Corinthians 7:3. Starting at 7:3 and then going through. It talks about the way that if a man cannot control himself, he is supposed to marry. Now, God gives us free will. He gives us the ability to make a decision. But if we are willing to, I know for me, I made the decision to pray to the Lord after the experiences that I had in my last relationship. The trauma that I was going through at the time, that person supported me during that trauma, but I was supposed to let him go. I was not supposed to keep him around, but he kept me alive for a lot of I tell you, people don't know. And because of that, I have not dated in like 10 years since that relationship ended. And I told the Lord about 5, it's been longer than 5, it's been at least 7 years. I told the Lord, I remember that day I was sitting on the bed. And it's funny. God has a way and a sense of humor. He showed me, not just that day, He showed me my God ordained spouse about a year before I saw what I saw that evening. And I was not thinking about this person. They did not cross my mind. I just remember sitting and saying to myself, Lord, I don't want to feel like this no more. The next person I let into my life, I want them to be there for me. I want all of this type of stuff in relation to. I need somebody that's supportive to me. I need all of this kinds of stuff. And it wasn't a arduous list. I needed someone that cared enough, was supportive enough of me, yet I didn't have to feel fearful or want to be away from them, because that's all I've ever wanted. I had to ostracize myself away from people on 95% of the time because I just couldn't handle being around me. And I needed somebody in my life that if this person's for me, they're going to want to be around me and they're going to want to be in my life. And it's funny because 5 minutes before I said, it's like God will ask you before you even ask the prayer. He showed me a photograph of this person. No, it was a video clip of this person. He showed me a video clip of this person 5 minutes before I prayed that prayer. And I didn't realize until he told me later on, months upon months later, I asked him, so who's the guy? And he's like, remember that guy? I was like, shut up. And then not only that, a couple months ago, somebody asked me a question, and how did the Lord tell you who your God ordained spouse was? And I had to think about it, and I was like, oh my God, the minister I was listening to did a video on the counterfeit looks like the real thing, which took me back in time to the first time the Lord showed me this guy. He showed me a duplicate of what this guy looked like through a counterfeit guy that looked, didn't I tell you it was a doppelganger all day long? I met this guy at the bar somewhere. No, I was not drinking. I went to a business dinner, and I was still Christian at this time. And this guy came and he sat down across from where I was, and I was like, ooh. And I got up and went and sat next to him, and we ended up in conversation. And he was so interested. He was interested and intrigued in all of the same things that I was interested in. But he was 27 years old, and I was older than him at the time. No, we might have been I might have been 28, maybe, at that time. He might have been right around the same age. And when I tell you he looked identical to the man that the Lord showed me, the man the Lord showed me is older than that. But he showed me less than 6 months later the actual guy. When I tell you the guy that I met that night at the bar, was wearing a similar outfit to the image in which brought me back to understanding, oh, that was the counterfeit of this guy. I was like, oh, Lord Jesus, really? Really? For real? And I said all that to say, God is going to prepare you for the man in which you need to be with. They may not be consecrated. They may not be operating, but he prepares. What did he do to Eve? He pulled her from Adam's rib. He formed you and shaped you to be everything that this man needs. He just don't know it yet. And when the Lord start dealing with the man, he gonna be out there. He gonna have his concubines, his wives, and all this kind of people that he be dealing with. But when the Lord pulls him and says, sit down, let me talk to you for a minute, and he pulls him out and starts to break soul ties and all that kind of stuff, it starts to really deal with this man. When that man comes to you, you may be sitting there saying to yourself, God, I don't know about this. God's like, it's alright. I know you don't. That's okay. But we're going to work that out. It's going to be alright. It's going to be alright. Because the Lord is going to deal with that man. He may not have dealt with him. Now some have the argument that, oh, the godly men, they already doing that kind of stuff. Well, from my understanding, the honest ones sit up there and say, no, they had their moments. They were out there doing sin. A lot of the stories I've heard, matter of factly, they were like, yeah, I was out here sinning. I was doing all that kind of stuff. They were doing more than just the sex stuff. They was doing, some of them were doing drugs. They were drinking. They was dealing with porn addictions and all kinds of stuff. So no, some of them, they really were not out here sanctifying themselves before the Lord, waiting on their God-ordained spouse. Now some of them, yeah, they are. And you see Chipper Charlie with the blonde hair, yeah. But it's very rare you see that black man that's doing the same. Very rare. Very rare. God sends us in to be that lifesaver and preserver for these men sometimes. But you got to be careful of that, because anybody that has that lifesaver presentation about themselves will have a tendency to be like, I gotta save them. And the enemy will send a counterfeit that needs all the saving in the world, but you ain't gonna be the one to save them, because you're not the one anointed to be their wife. And you will waste your time. They will drain you, vacuum you, and hang you back up to dry. These men ain't all of them out here just saying that I'm going to consecrate and fast to be. But we have to do it, because we have to sanctify. It'd be amazing if the men were out there sanctifying themselves before the Lord and becoming commanders in the spirit and praying. That would be a blessing if my God-ordained spouse was that way. But they say a lot of these men, a lot of them, they need you to come in and clean them up in the spirit. Some of them, they're open to it because they are spiritually connected to the Lord and they tightened up enough, but they got little areas that still need to be where the residue needs to be swept out. And you're gonna come in and sweep out the residue. But if you've been praying for your spouse, because some have, some haven't, you done helped with the clearing out spiritually on that man. So he may not be in such a bad condition as what some people are going to deal with. Because there's some ministers out here, they make the God-ordained wife feel very scared. It's like, oh, you're going to go through it, and it's going to be this, and it's going to be that, and it's going to be the other thing. And it's like, I've had to fight through to hear the messages where there's good 4 or 5 ministers that will honestly say, There are some people that have generational blessings upon their lives that it's not going to be a fight. You're not going to be at odds with each other all the time. You are not. It's going to be peaceful. So that is just what I had to say for the ministry. Until next time. Bye-bye.